So it appears that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Once Upon a Time, and Inhumans are all up for a new season, which I have to say is awesome for the fans, but also puts me in a state of caution, at least for Once Upon a Time. Inhumans, I didn't watch, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I don't watch. I don't know how the Marvel fan base really feels about, the ABC Marvel shows to the Marvel Netflix shows, so my guess is the Marvel Netflix shows are revered, while the ABC shows are either liked, which is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or just disliked, like Inhumans. But with Once Upon a Time, which is going to be the pinnacle point of this discussion, I'm very cautious with it getting a season 8, because the more times the show gets renewed, the more I see it becoming the Supernatural for ABC. The Supernatural, on the CW, or WB, whatever you want to call it, was or is about Sam and Dean, and they were fighting supernatural phenomena during each and every season. I got into the show around season 4. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed the arcs up until season 8. Kind of got halfway through. I finished 8, but I really only enjoyed 7. And then I stopped watching after 8. I just lost all interest. And I don't want that to happen with Once Upon a Time, but I feel that could happen, because when you have a show where there's no end game, you wonder, well, how could it possibly end? Because essentially Once Upon a Time is about happy endings, and because they can pull from so many different source materials, and now they have no problem with doing different versions of different characters, it could literally go on forever. I mean, even after Adam Horowitz and Eddie Kitsis die, the show could still be renewed and renewed and renewed. There's a show that's on in England that is over 3,000 or 2,000 episodes. It's one of the two. It's very, very high. It's the longest running show ever. It's only on once a week, and I could see that happening to Once Upon a Time. I could honestly see that happening with Grey's Anatomy, though you would have to go into descendants of Meredith Grey. But the point is, when you have a show where there's no end game, it could potentially go on forever. And as, you guys are big fans of Once, which I know, I do wonder, do you want Once to go on forever, or do you want it to essentially have some form of endgame? And, with Endgame, I'm kind of focusing on more like, Game of Thrones, or even Orange is the New Black, where essentially Orange is the New Black, after Piper Chapman gets released from the prison, she more or less would be gone from the show, and I think it would end. I think it's renewed up to season 7, which makes sense because they'll have a season 6 that focuses on, the arcs in the prison, and then season 7 that focuses on that, and then that's it. Piper will leave, and then that's the story, even though the beginning of season 3 essentially started to focus away from Piper. The story started with her, and the end game was her leaving. Game of Thrones, for example, it's all about who's officially going to sit on the Iron Throne and who's going to bring peace to Westeros. It's more or less going to be either Daenerys, Sansa, Arya, or Jon Snow, in my opinion. But the point is, there's an end game there. Someone is going to be sitting on the throne, and then the show will end. With Once, as I've said, there's no end game, because essentially you're just saving people and giving them happy endings, or erasing their memories for the umpteenth time. Now, the article had a couple interesting points that I want to discuss, and I have two quotes from Channing Dungey, which I thought were really interesting. So the first quote is, "I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. It's always hard to find at this point." My Word document is a mess, so let me just revise that. All right, here we go. I'm very sorry. So the first quote is, "I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. It's always hard at this point in January to know, because some of it is also dependent on your new development and how you feel about those things. So that's why it's really hard at the top of the year to know exactly what's going to happen." So essentially, she doesn't know specifically if she's going to renew it. She needs to hear a pitch from Adam Horowitz and Eddie Kitsis for what they want to do with season 8, which also means she's going to hear how season 7 is going to end. But that's really going to direct the conversation. She's looking at the numbers, which we're going to talk about in a second, and then she's thinking, what's the creative aspect behind it? Now, with Once, it's really cool because the creative minds, they are creative, and they do get to run their own show. But Channing Dungey doesn't have any creative input on Once, and that's a problem. And I don't know how well her background is in the creative field, but what I think is she needs to put a supervisor on the show that can act essentially as her eyes and ears, and can report to her and give her notes, so that way she can look at these scripts. Because I think Once is one of the shows that ABC doesn't want to lose, because it's so heavily tied to every Disney film, more or less. And I think that she would want someone to essentially monitor what Adam Horowitz and Eddie Kitsis are doing, so that way, there's a little bit more supervision. Because, Hollywood's a business, and as much as you want to have creative, have the arts and have it be creative, you need someone to, kind of hone it in and make sure that it's good. And with season 7, I've only really liked 3 or 4 episodes, and I've hated 3 episodes, and then a couple episodes were kind of blah. And I don't think a fan base, I mean, I'm a pretty big fan of the show. I don't think anyone ever wants to have episodes that you find blah and episodes that you just despise. I mean, you can have episodes that you don't like, but there are episodes I really don't like with season 7, and that's because I think it had very, very little control from an executive. So I think that we need more creative control on the show. Adam Horowitz and Kits is because they're the producers, the writers, and I don't know if they direct, but I definitely know they produce, create, and write, so they have the ability to really do anything they want. And so in regards to season 8 happening, they talked about the ratings, and Channing Dungey said the second quote, which essentially that she takes into account the overlapping viewership, which I think is fantastic, because a lot of us were wondering how networks look at viewership. Do they just look at the one night in the demo, or do they look at it, over a period? And it's generally like the 3-day period. And with Once Upon a Time, it actually works like a box office or like a movie where it airs on Friday, and then they look at who's watching it Saturday and Sunday. Generally on DVD, I don't think they're looking at the Hulu rating. So I really love the fact that Channing Dungey is admitting that. And then another quote from this article that she said, she knows that the show is suffering. She knows that S.H.I.E.L.D. as well has lost viewership since, it moved to Fridays. This fantasy sci-fi night I don't think works. I think it's a very stupid idea. Its viewership is still down. Its live viewership is still down, but I really think networks no longer care about the live viewership. And that's why she's saying, well, up front it looks bad, but when you step back and see who's watching it on Sunday and Saturday, it doesn't look as bad as I would think, which is good. She said the average is about 3.7 million in total for those 3 days, which is more or less what a live viewing audience was, I believe, for the end of season 5 or I definitely know 6 was in the 2s quite a bit, but that's essentially like where Once was as it started to lose its peak from the Frozen arc. But 3.7 million people watching is what ABC I think would like to be the average on Friday night. But I think in total she's fine with that. She knows that there are still fans who are watching it, and that's very reassuring that she realizes that people are out there and looking at the show later in the day because they can't watch it on Friday night. Another thing I wanted to mention is what I really like about this announcement from Once Upon a Time or from ABC is I like how getting this more insight into the business aspect of television, because I know very well how the box office works. A movie airs generally on a Thursday for the viewer audience, or for the press it's different. They can see it up to 3 weeks or a month in advance. But generally a movie comes out on a Thursday, so you have the Thursday night viewings, and then you have the Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night numbers, and then the numbers start to just convalesce after the opening weekend. And I like the fact that TV now is essentially following that pattern where it's taking the 3-day. I imagine it's 3. It could be the full week, but I don't think the full week is correct. So I do like the fact that TV is mimicking the movies in terms of how it's performing. If a movie doesn't perform super well on a Thursday, it doesn't mean it's going to perform badly overall. And I think that's essentially what Once Upon a Time or ABC is looking at, because it's saying, okay, if one night is bad, we still have 2-3 more days to make up for it. And then once you have that number, you kind of get indicative as to how your movie's going to do. And I think with Once pulling off the 3 million, 3.7, almost 4, that's good. There's still the audience. More or less, it's about a third of the people that follow Once Upon a Time on Twitter. So that means there's a very active fan base watching this show, and a very good chunk of them are also following the Once's Twitter account. I think the Once Upon a Time Twitter is actually really, really well managed. So Adam Horowitz and Ed Kitsis are going to be talking to Channing Dungey, I would imagine, before the Oscars, in order to give her a pitch, and then she's essentially going to say yes or no, and then we'll find out. I think 7, the end of 7, it has to be done. I know they have episode titles up to episode 14, So they're going to have some idea of where they want to do it. At least they have I imagine they have an end game for 7 in mind. So they're going to say where we want to go with 8. And if she likes it, she'll say, all right, fine, let's do it. And that's what's going to happen with Once. I highly doubt they're going to cancel it because she says I'm cautiously optimistic. And when a network executive is saying they're cautiously optimistic, it's a good sign. She's not saying, well, I don't know. She's saying, yeah, pretty much. I need to really see what they want to do. So that leaves, what would you guys want to see for season 8? I keep saying 7. I think Moana would be probably the best choice for them to do. I think they need to remove many of the characters from season 7. I would advise them to remove Jack, Alice, Cinderella, Lucy, Lady Tremaine, and even Drizella and Gothel. I think you need to start focusing on your core characters, which would be Henry, Regina, and Hook, because Robert Carlyle is leaving after season 7. He's done. He's not coming back. So I think focusing on those 3 and then getting 3 brand new characters that are from a very popular current Disney film, Moana, and then merge it. I think if they did a Moana Tarzan arc, that'd actually be really fun because it'd be in the jungle type thing. It'd be a jungle gimmick anyway. And I think that would be very cool. As much as people like Cinderella, I don't think the way that they are doing Cinderella is working out really well story-wise. It's very complicated. And with 22 episodes, it's obviously fine to do complicated because you have that time to flesh it out, but it's a little too much. And I think you need to pull back and make it a little bit more stagnant and a little bit more clean cut. And I think 7 is the opposite of that. Though I do know a lot of you are enjoying 7. I think 7's fun. Don't get me wrong, it's still fun. I enjoy watching each episode. In fact, I'm kind of bummed out I haven't got to watch an episode in a while because of the break. But I have to sit back and process 7 a lot more than I did with 1 through 6. And also, if you think about it, when you get to season 8, you only really have 3 original characters left, and that's assuming that Colin Donahue and Lana Priya want to even stay. I mean, I say characters, not actors. But then I have a feeling Andrew J. West would want to keep his job. I imagine he wants to keep making money. But Colin Donahue and Lana Priya are already very well established with fans and careers, so they could easily leave projects and not be stuck on the small screen. That's actually one thing that is a problem with like the Supernatural shows or Ellen Pompeo, with that Supernatural show with Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles, because they're stuck on the small screen. They'll never lose the reputation of being Sam and Dean Winchester. Ellen Pompeo will never stop being Meredith Grey. Colin O'Donoghue could still break away from being Captain Hook, and Lana Priya, I really do believe, isn't always going to be typecasted as the evil queen. She could be, I feel like she would play a villain better than most, but she doesn't always have to be the evil queen. I actually would love her in a Star Wars film. And I am really enjoying the Star Wars. I'm rewatching the first 7 movies, and I love it. But that's my thoughts on this. So season 7 is, it's coming back out March 2nd, which is exciting. Hopefully we'll get a trailer. We definitely get an, when are the Oscars? I forget if the Oscars are at the end of February or the beginning of March, because if they're in the beginning of March, we probably won't get a promo. But if, for an Oscars, there's normally always a big Oscar promo, but hopefully we'll get a trailer or a sneak peek in a couple days, or a couple weeks, I should say. Maybe some more news. I'll do a video discussing the episode titles, because I know a lot of those have come out. The last one I did was, I think, A Taste of the Heights, which is like the 12th episode, so I haven't covered anything since then. But anyway, what do you guys feel about Once getting a season 8? Are you up for it? Or do you think that it could cause the show to become too serialized? So anyway, share your thoughts in the comments below. There's a link in the video description about the article from Channing Dungey. I thought it was really insightful. I mean, I wish it was longer, quite frankly, or I wish it was a video. But I really did enjoy reading this because it was really good insight into the business behind television. So anyway, share your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll talk real soon. All right, guys. Bye.